What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi and Kenny Hyder. We're going to be talking through the Players Championship here. Historically, been my best golf week. I think I've only had like one losing week of the ones that I've played, but I've had like some huge wins and obviously some near $1 million win. So I'm pretty pumped up for this week. I do want to let everybody know before we get into all this that our packages, as I've mentioned in other shows, they're going to be going up pretty soon, and I think that now is probably the time you want to get in. You'll be grandfathered into everything. We just partnered with PayDirt in addition to our partnership with SaberSim. I think some of the PayDirt tools are absolutely incredible, especially for hand builders, but I think that they could be used in many different ways. And I really feel like we're offering a unique set of offerings that most of these sites aren't. And I think that it's really worth taking a shot. We do have a $14.99 trial, and I think you guys could check that out if you haven't already. And I think it's a really good time to get in. We've got a great team. We've expanded a little bit. We've got we've got Adam covering hockey. You've always got me and Sheets, obviously, for everything. Sheets and Goldie's projections. Both of them are awesome. Sheets' projections have been sort of unparalleled. He had been out for about a week, but he's back this afternoon. So I would really encourage people to check this out. And I think we have a lot of great things to offer. And wanted to bring Kenny back here because Kenny knows his stuff. He's a guy who, even whether or not you guys always see him, he's always helping me with my own golf stuff. We're talking through it. Kenny follows golf a lot closer than I do, and has a lot of good in-depth knowledge. So Kenny, thank you for being back with us. How do you feel about this tournament? How are things going for you? And then we'll get into it.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having me. I love this tournament. Everyone knows it's fifth major. I was actually, it was interesting. I was watching Rick's podcast yesterday, and he was mentioning how he thought that at one point the PGA should have made this a major, and I didn't even realize that was like a possibility that you could just make another major. But it doesn't make any sense that they didn't. But anyway, it is, definitely the most exciting tournament yet this year, and it's really now we're in full swing. So it should be a fun week, and obviously it's always fun when the golf tournaments are big, because so are the DFS tournaments, and there's a lot of money out there this week. So it's exciting to try to get some of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get it. I'm going to share the DraftKings screen. I'm going to go a little bit Sheets old school because I've got all my stuff, and I'll sort of refer to what I'm doing, but just sort of a mess with my SaberSim page right now. I'm still working on my builds and all that. Spent a lot of time this week listening to a lot of podcasts, doing a lot of reading, and trying, I've been keeping up with everything, and that's a pretty good start. But as we all know, as I always point out, there's good biases to have because of recency, whatnot. But I also think there's some edge to be gained with some of these lower owned plays this week. So we'll get into it, and we'll start right at the top here, Kenny. I guess, is there any overall thoughts you have before we jump into, the pricing tier? It feels like a very soft pricing with the 5K players allowed and some really good players in the 5K range. Seems like you're going to be able to get in whatever you want, which I think is going to mean Scotty's probably going to be higher owned than he's currently being projected. But really pretty easy to do whatever you want, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I like this kind of, the pricing is obviously it's soft, but I think, it's a good thing for everyone, because this week, this is the real first week that's going to be a real true test of, the golfer's capability. And, it's going to be the hardest course on the schedule so far. And, obviously the best field, in the league in PGA so far. So really you kind of have a lot of opportunity to take an angle and figure out what you like, and this kind of pricing, I think, really helps give the players that maybe have some skill or some insight into golf maybe a little bit of edge, because there's like several weeks already this season. It's just, we know that there's a certain type of golfer, approaches from 150 to 175 are like really important 3 weeks ago. So those guys are going to definitely rise to the top, and they always do. But this week, I think it really normalizes the field and really forces the talent to the top, whether it's Scotty or, the up and comers that are down below 6K. So,
yep.
I like it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, and I'm going to say, like, the way I start these things, what I do is, and again, Sheets will have his projections up at some point, but they're not up yet for golf. As we know, he's, been going through it and got a lot of stuff going on personally. So always wishing the best for him, but he'll get his up. But what I do is I'll take a Goldie in his projections, and I tend to use Goldie or Sheets' projections for my projected ownership, and occasionally I'll tweak it a little bit just based on what I've seen elsewhere. I also and then for in terms of the actual projection, not the ownership. I often average it out between SaberSim, Goldie, and Sheets, and I'll put my own little stamp on some of the guys that I might like a little bit more than maybe I feel like aren't being treated quite as fairly by the other projection system. So that's sort of my first step, and then I'm going through it and I'm tweaking. I talk all the time about basketball, and we always talk about process, but in basketball, I never min-max anything because it ends up leaving you with money on the table in spots where you really shouldn't. I think in golf and football, it's completely fine. Obviously, I won the million in doing that, so it can't be that bad. But the min-maxing in golf and really taking advantage of Sheets and Goldie's projections is just a way of getting unique within the SaberSim and the Hyder to some extent as well. Getting unique even from other SaberSim builders, because as we know, SaberSim is an incredible tool that a lot of people out there are using, and it'll give you a different way of getting different within those builds. So that's my first step. Getting into the top range, we got a lot of guys. We've got 7 guys. Oh, sorry, yeah, 7, right? No, 8. I'm sorry, 8 guys over 10K. I don't know why I had 7 in my mind. And starting with going down to Kenny, what do you like most here? I'm sure you'll have exposure to a number of these guys. What is your favorite plays from this range?
So my favorite play is going to be Oberg. We saw last week Scotty and Rory back together again for the first time since Pebble this season. Obviously, back both of them in the field here. Obviously, both the 2 top priced and 2 top rated guys at the moment. I do think that it was interesting to see Xander not do so well last week, which I think was everyone's expectation. I think that that's going to further people to be off of him this week, which kind of makes me want to get onto him more, just because I know that a lot of, I think Scotty is definitely going to be the highest owned in the range. And I think Rory is probably going to be a pretty close second. So, and after that, I think Colin might be right up there next to them. But I think, Xander, Oberg, and JT, I think are going to get kind of overlooked. And out of those 3, Oberg is definitely my favorite, with JT being then, not too distant second after. So those will probably be kind of my core plays. I will be doing a little bit of research today, see if I can find any news or see any warm up from Xander or anything like that, to see if it might be time to get onto him, just because he is probably the second best golfer in the world. But just hard to really commit when we know that he's been struggling on coming off an injury. So
especially with how loaded the field is and everything, and everybody in his price range.
Right.
It's not like we're getting a price discount because he's been, you know what I mean? And
Right.
You get that in other sports. You don't get that in golf. If a guy's been
Right.
banged up, you're not getting any discount on him. Unless it's been for over a year and they've been playing poorly. Afternoon to Andy in the chat. Always good to see you here, man. I'll go through again, I'm playing a lot of lineups this week. So I currently am just barely below the field on Scotty. I actually thought I was going to be more below the field. I didn't ask for as much of it as I keep ending up with, but I like a lot of the cheaper stuff, which I think is going to naturally get you to Scotty, which I'm obviously not going to complain about. The ownerships throughout the end of the year seeing are somewhere between 30 and 40% for him. I wouldn't be surprised if in higher buy-ins or single entry, you see him in the 50 to 60% range. That's just my guess. He's won this twice in a row now, right?
Yep, that's right.
I think he has, yeah.
Yep.
So Scotty basically ish right near the field, depending on where we think it's going to be. I'm a little below on Rory. What's that?
Oh yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No problem. I'm a little below on Rory. It's nothing personal to it's just I want to like what you pointed out about Xander. I think we can get him at low ownership and take a real stab there. I think it's worth gambling on, and it wouldn't surprise us in the least if he was the one who holding the trophy at the end of the tournament. It's one bad tournament coming back from an injury. Says it didn't bother him all that much, but again, getting over on him is not going to take all that much. You're talking about somewhere between probably 5 and 9% ownership would be my guess. And if you're really saying you're the best golfer second best golfer in the world, which is totally fair, it's 1,700 cheaper than Scheffler. We all know that if this was normal Xander, he'd be like 25% as he always is. And I think there's some value in trying to play him like that. So I'm a little over on Xander, a little bit under on Morikawa at the moment, just because I feel that's another one that I think is going to snowball. I think it's going to be higher than it's actually being, released. You're seeing him somewhere between 20 and 30% mostly. Sorry, between 25 and 35 to 40% actually in some places. So I'm with you on the Oberg. Oberg, Scheffler will be my highest exposed players, 10K plus, but I will be over on Xander. I will probably be over on Cantlay just because, again, it doesn't take much to get over on a guy who's going to be 5, 6, 7% owned. And I'm just always
Cantlay, I really like too. He's solid throughout the bag. He's consistent, and this is the course where you don't have to be a superstar off the tee or a superstar around the greens. You need to be really good all the time, and that's his profile.
Yeah, and usually we're looking at 10K plus guys as they have to win tournaments because that's what you want them to win the tournament. In this case, you could actually play two guys plus that are 10K plus because of the value that we have, and in some cases some very, very good value that literally if they were like 2K more, I think we'd still be playing them. And we'll get to those guys a little bit later. But and then JT, I'm going to probably be near the field on. So not taking massive stands outside of, I do really like Oberg. He's going to have ownership, but like I'll be above the field, whatever it is. And I'll be above the field on Xander and Cantlay. It's more game theory than anything else. Just when you're getting these guys at such low ownership, I think it's worth taking some gambles there.
And it becomes so much more important too in the larger field events, because when you have the $1 million, the million makers, the field sizes are massive, which doesn't always happen in golf. You don't get these 70,000, 100,000 person fields. So you really have to kind of stress those game theory points.
Exactly. I think I totally agree with that. Golf is a great sport to do it in because the variance is just so incredibly high, especially at this tournament. Unfortunately, I kind of was hoping there'd be weather and we could try and find some angle, but there's not really much weather to speak of on Thursday and Friday, so we can't really go on that. But even without the weather, this is a extremely high variance course, and you will see some weird numbers up there from a lot of the best players. It happens every year. All right, 9K range, where I think I'm a little bit higher maybe than the field is on this range. Where do you stand, and who do you like the most from this range?
So this range is pretty simple for me. It's basically just the same, couple of guys I've been on the past few weeks, going back to Russell Henley, which look, he won last week. Lucky for him. Also wild. Shane Lowry. Shane Lowry, I'll be back to again this week, who's also had another great week last week. I mean, he's top 10 2 weeks in a row, coming into a tournament where he's had a really good history. And he actually, it turns out Shane is actually like one of the best golfers in Florida swings in general. If you go look at like all tournaments played in Florida. So I'll probably be pretty heavy on him this week because I think he's definitely undervalued here and definitely going to be under-owned in terms of at least where I think he should be. And then, I'll be back to your boy Fleetwood this week as well. I know that he looks like he's going to be probably a little bit higher owned for this, in this range, but I don't mind that at all. You know what I mean? So especially because, and I did mean to say one comment about Scotty. I saw his presser yesterday and he looked pissed. I don't know if you caught that, but someone asked him, about how he feels about this week after, and the, coming off of back-to-back wins from last year and stuff. And he basically roasted the guy and he's like, I don't know what you think that has to do anything with this week. And he's like, that has nothing to do with this, and he just, like, he really kind of and it seemed off character to me. Like, I mean, he's not, he's the least public of the popular golfers, but he seems like such a nice guy all the time, and he's so kind of easygoing and
even when being wrongfully arrested.
Yeah, but he seemed agitated, and I think that it was to me. My read was that it was not. There's something else going on. Like he's maybe there's something pissing him off in life or something. But that kind of and I think that he was pretty frustrated after last week too, and that kind of makes me want to maybe get off of him a little bit. So for that reason, like the little bit higher ownership on Fleetwood and, being at the top of the 9K range, I don't mind at all. You know what I mean? Like because I'm gonna be saving money anyway, being, underweight on Scotty. So,
Right.
yeah, my main three in the range are going to be Fleetwood, Henley, and Lowry. Probably going to also mix in a fair amount of Wyndham Clark this week. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually think that Henley ends up a little bit lower owned this week. It's the weird thing that always happens after they
Yeah,
win.
everyone gets off them after a
Right.
win. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and it's you're seeing it's Henley might have the widest range of where his ownership is depending on what site you're looking at. And I'm trying to average it out here, but like I've seen as low as like 9 and I've seen as high as 30. Which is just like an absurd thing. And I know we're still not there yet. The tournament's still whatever 18 hours away. But it is kind of weird to see that. I'm extremely high, and again, I'm going a little bit different this week. But I mean, these are the chalky one I will eat is Fleetwood. He's my highest owned player currently. We see it every week with him, man. It's the same exact thing. He comes in, he makes the cut by a couple strokes, and then he ends up somehow in the top 15 no matter what. But I think that there's upside for him to actually win this tournament. And I don't look at things like has he won on the whatever. It doesn't mean anything to me. That's all BS narratives. Right. I love Hideki. I've gotten turned on to this by a lot of people I know who like golf. A lot of people have been talking about this. He's been sneaky good there, by the way. I think Hideki is really, really solid, and I'll be well over the field on him. Other than that, you've got a lot of guys in this category, and I'm a little bit under on some of the spend ups. So Sungjae, I'll probably I can't do it right now with where everything's like how he's doing to really commit. But I do have him like probably right with the field. I would imagine around 5 or 6%. Daniel Berger, I actually like a little bit better than the field, so I've got him like not a huge 10%. I'm a little under on Henley at the moment.
I don't understand why he's projected to be so low. Like I think that's wrong, and I see the same thing too. Sources he's under 10. Yeah, but it's
people were playing last week he was 3 weeks ago or whatever.
Yeah, but last week he was 9 something, wasn't he? I mean, I don't know. It seems odd to me, but anyway.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I like him either way. And those are like those are just the ones that I think that just
last week he was $9,900. So I mean,
yeah, but
people were all over him last week
on DraftKings. I think he was played on FanDuel or something. If I remember correctly, I don't remember what his ownership was, to be honest with you.
Interesting.
Yeah, so the ones that again, I'm not making huge commitments. I do like the Lowry. He's the other one I'll have double-digit ownership of, but it's not going to take much to get a little bit over on Wyndham Clark. It's not going to take much to get over on, and it's extremely speculative, and nothing that's happening should be telling you to play this guy. It's just taking a chance that he finds it for one tournament. And like honestly, would be a guy who 2 years ago we would be paying 10K plus for and be happy to do it would be Hovland. Again, you don't need to play more than like 5 or 6% of them to be over the field. So I'm not talking about a huge commitment, but I do think getting a little bit of exposure in a large field makes some sense to me. All right, down in the 8K range, I'm going to scroll down here. What do you like here? What are you finding?
So this range, I'm not too certain about. I do like Siwoo Kim this week. I think that he's going to be under-owned. I think that, everyone knows he's a Pete Dye specialist. Everyone also seems to think that he's just not been playing well lately, but that's not really the case. He's just not won yet this season, but he's had decent finishes, made 4 cuts in a row. He has a decent history here, including a tie for 6th last year. Also, I'm going to be back to Bobby Mack this week. Had a fine week last week after getting cut the week before. I mentioned last week on the show, I have no problem with him getting cut. I think he'll get right back up there, and he did. And I think I expect to see that out of him again this week. I know he's going to be a little bit chalky this week, but again, I don't mind so much because I'm going to, my strategy be underweight on Scotty, who's going to be probably the highest owned. So I don't mind taking a little bit more chalk in some of these ranges when I'm going to be fading the highest owned guy. So Siwoo, Bobby Mack, and then Sepp Straka also. But I think he's going to actually be pretty high owned. I think that he's currently not. I guess he's on. I guess we have him at what 16% or something. So
That's what
that
Goldie. Yeah,
maybe makes a little bit more sense. Yeah. So I'll probably still be overweight on him there again because I don't mind eating the chalk in these mid ranges. So those will probably be my three main guys: Siwoo, Sepp, and Bobby Mack.
yeah. I think that we are exactly in lockstep because those are the only three players I have in this range above 10%. It is going to be somewhat the forgotten range. If you wanted to, again, not going to take you a lot to get over on Will Zalatoris. The most interesting one in this whole tournament is Jordan Spieth. Has shown signs lately. It's also, like I mentioned, a high variance course. It's one of those things where he could have like the 20th best score and end up with he could end finishing 20th and literally have like a top
Right.
7 score because
with 4 eagles or some weird.
yeah, something crazy like that. You just see him, you see him just chipping in 3 times or whatever, making a 60-footer or something like that. Anyway, he picked up 5 strokes putting last week. I don't expect anything like that again. I don't think that's really, I don't think you can replicate that, especially on a course that doesn't necessarily benefit putting that like excellent putters all that much. I mean, obviously it's always better than not, but basically again, getting just sprinklings of everybody else. But Zalatoris Zalatoris and Spieth, I'll be over the field, but that's like saying like 6 or 7%. It's not like a huge percentage. The only ones in double digits for me are McIntyre, Siwoo, and Straka. I have heard a lot of Jason Day buzz. Again, I'm probably near the field on that one, but everybody else I'm pretty much under. And as much as I want to play Minwoo, it doesn't feel like the right course, but I'm a little nervous about it because I'm going to hold off on I'll post my final exposures, but it's one guy who I thought, okay, here's something I could do that's different. And I'm expecting one day he's going to end up like, he'll top 5 one of these events and we'll be like, oh my God, we didn't expect him in this type of event. Anyway, I'm a little bit intrigued by it, but I didn't end up getting there in all honesty, very much at all. 75.
That's the one I'm curious about too, is Jason Day's, and he's been in pretty good form.
Yep.
He doesn't have a terrible history here. It's, nothing spectacular over the past 5 years or whatever, but it seems odd that considering he's had what may be considered somewhat lackluster performance recently, just because he's got the name of Jason Day. It's odd to see that he's, in the higher end of projected ownership in the range. So that kind of makes me not maybe need to get to him, but I don't know, probably might need to rethink that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I can't. That's the one I have the hardest time. Well, one of the hardest times figuring out. He's a tricky one for me. And also he's another one I thought was going to be more popular. So I kind of went into it with a bias of, okay, I'm probably not going to play as much of him as everybody else. Then I see everybody else isn't really playing him that much, kind of piquing my interest a little bit. 75, 7,900. What do you like in this range?
Okay, so I'm off of Davis Thompson finally.
Finally off.
Finally off of him. 2 cuts in a row and was pretty heavy on the past couple weeks. No thanks. Yeah. So just get that out of the way. I'm going to be on to Keegan Bradley this week. Had a great week last week, and I think surprised a lot of people that he had a great week. And I think that he's going to continue to play great golf. Look, everyone, the Ryder Cup narrative is huge for him this year, obviously being captain and everything. I think he wants to earn his way on the team and not be captain. And I think he's trying to do it. And I think that he's got the mental fortitude to not let his responsibilities get to him. He's focused on his play, and his play has been great. So I'll be pretty heavy on Keegan this week. This week I'm going to be on to Brian Harmon, who is a guy that I've historically liked, but just not really been on so much this season. But this is a accuracy course, and it's also, he's a lefty. On courses like this, I think lefties sometimes have a big advantage just because, the way that Pete Dye designs courses is to trick the eye, but he tricks the eye for righties because 80% of golfers are righties. So
yeah.
And that goes, Bobby Mack, also a lefty who I like in the last range, but so I kind of like the lefty narrative here for him. Also, just knowing he's a super accurate guy. You don't have to be super long off the tee here. He isn't, so that's not a problem. and he's solid everywhere else, right? So he's on my radar this week. I'm gonna probably be pretty heavy on him, and I think that he's going to be probably lower owned than projected, which he's already projected to be pretty low. So I actually like him quite a lot. And then my last guy in the range is probably going to be Adam Scott this week, who's also another one of those guys I think flying a little bit under the radar. Playing decent golf, but nothing, stellar so far this season. And I think because of that, he's kind of getting skipped, but he's another one of those guys, like, super solid golfer. He's been here, done that, played this course a ton of times, and he's been playing great golf, this season and last. So he's one of those guys I think he could actually get up and win it as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm very out on this range. I think the only people I'm above the weight on are just guys who, like, I'm sort of hoping for them to find themselves this year, and that would be like Fitzpatrick, which is not like, again, being overweight means like 5 or 6%. It doesn't mean I'm getting a bunch of it. I don't have double digits of anybody in this range. I am underweight on Corey Connors, who I think is going to be, again, more popular than currently being projected. I think he's going to be really popular, Corey Connors. Saberson's got him pretty popular. I think that's about, they're closer to right, I think, than most people are. But I mean, remember, like, Connors played great last week, obviously, but it's not like he's been awesome by any means so far this year. He did play well early on, at the Century or whatever, but like, I just feel like, again, it was another one that I was a little biased going in because I didn't think he'd be that I thought he'd be really popular, and he hasn't been that, anyway, he hasn't looked like he's going to be.
Well, I mean, Saberson's got him at what, 18% or something, which I think is just way too high.
That's where I expected to be. Like, but Goldie's got him around 10. I think he's probably somewhere in the 15 plus range, would be my guess.
I think he had a shot at winning. He got solo third last week. I think he's gonna definitely pick up a bunch of ownership, and for the value, I think you're exactly right. Find to be underweight on him. You know what I mean? It's just too high ownership for him.
Yeah, and I was a little bit worried about Keegan, but I'll probably end up just below the field. Like, again, not going to be making crazy. Just I have other players that I like better, but I totally, I like Keegan. He's a fighter. He's somebody I wouldn't mind if I was getting to more of him, but he's my highest owned in this range and still doesn't crack, what is he, 8.5% I've got of him right now. And Fitzpatrick I've got 5% of him, and it probably ends up 3% owned. That's pretty much it. And I think other people are going to ignore that range a little bit. I think they're going to ignore this next range, other than like one or two guys, to some extent. But I think you're going to see a lot of builds with the 6Ks with the double 10K spend ups, or 9,800 plus spend ups, I should say, because of I'm counting, Fleetwood and Morikawa are going to get some ownership as well. Which is an argument for going different and playing some of these guys. I just have a different way of going about it this week than that. All right, so let's talk about the 7K to 7,400 range. What do you like, if anything, in this range?
I actually like a lot of this. I like about half of the range.
Oh, wow.
So I'll just list off the guys. It's pretty much, like I said, it's half of them. I like Harris English. I like Grayson. I like Nick Taylor. I like Aaron Rai, and I like Keith Mitchell. So most of the guys in this range, all these guys are playing solid golf, and they all rate out well, across the bag. They're all solid. They all, pretty accurate guys, with the exception of Grayson, who, I'm not too worried about because he's been playing great golf anyway. So, not worried that his accuracy stat isn't up to par. But yeah, these are just really solid guys. I think there's a lot of value here. And there's a lot of, I think, opportunity because, outside of Aaron Rai, no one here is really projected to be that high owned, right? So, it's probably just I like Aaron Rai, but probably just from a game theory perspective, maybe I'll get off of him and be underweight. But the rest of those guys, I'll definitely be over the field. Probably not double digits on all of them, but definitely over the field on a lot of this range.
Yeah, it's interesting. I Grayson, I'll be above the field. Harris English, you can do basically, you play 2%, you'll be above the field. I don't think he's going to get any ownership whatsoever. So I actually think that's kind of, from that standpoint. I kind of like, I have a little bit of interest in Nick Taylor, but again, not even quite cracking double digits for me. The two that are cracking double digits for me are Aaron Rye and Bezuidenhout. Now the problem is Bezuidenhout is an excellent putter, and that's sort of like one of his strengths. I just have a good feeling about him in this tournament, and I've heard a couple other people who have agreed with me. He's also been like sneaky, really solid. Like I know you're not seeing like massive numbers out of these, recent results, but he's been in there the whole time. And he had a bad Sunday last week. A good Sunday would have put him in the top 10 easily, actually maybe top 5 easily. He was 4th at the Phoenix Open. I think he's just been a little bit better than maybe he's getting some credit for, and solid, accurate guy who I feel pretty comfortable about. So those are my two highest ones, are Aaron Rye and Bezuidenhout. And even with Aaron Rye, I'm still underweight the field with my ownership of him. He's the only one. He and Bezuidenhout are the only ones cracking double digits for me. Nice. All right, we're going to move down to below 6K, but we're going to do it a little differently this time. I guess we'll just talk about the guys we like in the 6K range, and then we'll use the 5K guys as cut maker, whatever's for when we do the game.
Yeah.
What do you like in the 6K range? It's a pretty huge range that I think we have to get some ownership this week.
Yeah, so starting at the top of the 6K range, I do like JT Poston, who's another guy that I've liked, this season and last, and has been, also been putting up solid numbers, nothing spectacular, but he's under 7K. So, and he's got some experience here with a couple of miscuts, but a couple of top, 22s or whatever. So, I'm going to be on to JT Poston a little bit this week. Also, definitely back to Ben Griffin this week, who's I've been on pretty much all season and has been playing great golf. And I think that this is going to be a good test of his capabilities this week, and a good, I think I'm expecting a good result, because he seems to me to be like just a super well-rounded golfer, where some of the tournaments so far on the schedule this season favored guys who skewed heavily in, certain other directions. So I think that he's going to have, his game's going to shine this week, probably better than, hopefully better than we've seen so far, and he's had a couple of top 5s this season. So
yeah, he's been really good.
Yeah. Then also JJ Spawn, I'll be back to this week, who I've been on the past few weeks, and was has been doing well. Didn't have the best week last week, but was in the mix and held his own. And also one of those guys who's just super well rounded and been playing great golf. Then I actually have some interest this week in Mr. Rich Flower. Wondering.
Wasn't expecting with that one.
Yeah. He's actually been okay. I mean, he withdrew from the Phoenix Open. He's made every cut this season. He's won it here before. And
I don't know who Rich Flower is.
Ricky Fowler.
Oh, Ricky Fowler. I think you said Rich Fowler. I thought it was some other. I thought it was like some
Rich
other
Flower.
I was looking for a different thing. Jeez,
that's what they call him when he joins like the YouTube golf podcast. They call him Rich Flower.
Okay. Anyway. Oh, Flower. I was looking for a Flower guy. I was not ready for it. But either way, I was really
Ricky
right,
Fowler. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. Rich Flower.
Yeah. Also, like I said, he's won here before. He's looking good this season, and I think we might see something special out of him, and at basically no ownership, when he has the capability to actually stud up and top 5, top 10, possibly win it, kind of a thing. He'll probably be a pretty heavy use in my core plays down in the low range here. And then we can skip basically all the way down to 6K flat, where I'll have some exposure to both Bo Hostler and Laurie Cantor.
Yes. Okay. So I agree with some of this, and I'll just go through the guys. The guys who I've got double digits in this range are JT Poston, and there's only 2. JT Poston and Justin Rose. I love Justin Rose this week. I think he's playing really well. I actually think he can totally play this course. I think he's too cheap. I think he's very motivated in general. I feel good about Justin Rose. So those are my 2 highest owned guys. Other than that, like I want to be a little bit over. It's not taking a lot to get overweight on him. Kitayama should set up well for this course. He just hasn't been playing well. And as was mentioned in chat just a few minutes ago by Jimmy about Horschel and Harris English living close to here. Horschel usually plays well for this time of year. He looked really bad last week. He played pretty well the week before, but he's missed 3 out of the last 4 he's been cut. I don't mind getting a little bit of exposure. I don't think, again, it won't take much to get ahead of the field. He's going to be like 2% owned. Horschel would be fine by me, but I'm not trying to get there. I do like Ben Griffin. He's the other one just under 10% that I have. And Ricky Fowler is actually another one who I've got 7% of, which may not sound like much when you're playing a bunch of lineups, though. Probably going to be just ahead of the field on him. One guy I was interested in a little bit of just sort of thinking about, 2 guys, I guess, Harry Hall, Nick Dunlap. I currently have hardly any of them, but I'm sort of trying to think about, like, can I justify this to myself? Because I did have a little bit of interest in both those guys. And then my favorite, my other double-digit guy, and the one I'll have the most exposure to will be Laurie Cantor. Laurie Cantor, the only live player in the field, has been playing extremely well and maybe overlooked because of that. I thought he actually might become trendy because of it, but I'm looking at the ownerships and I just don't see him being owned anywhere. So I like Laurie Cantor.
And a note there, he's actually the first guy to come back from after having played on live. He's no longer on live. But he got status here playing on the DP World Tour. So it's actually kind of a cool, I expect he'll actually have a lot of camera time because it's a big narrative, the first guy that's played on live coming back to play the PGA Tour. So and I think that he's going to draw some ownership because of that as well. I mean, he already projects higher than everyone around him. So I'm a little cautious of that, but I do, looks like he's been playing well. I haven't seen him. I don't watch the DP World Tour, but I think that's I think everyone will be on him, and I don't want to miss out either.
Same page there as well. All right. Now we've got a pretty robust. It's interesting that we have all these 5K guys are going to be significantly more owned than the 6K guys, especially the one who I know you're going to start off by mentioning. So I'll let you start off by mentioning him, and then we'll start talking about everybody else.
Yes, Mr. Gary Woodland. No.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about somebody else.
No, Michael Kim. Of course, I'm just going to go Michael Kim.
Oh my God. Those people I've heard talking to Woodland up a little bit.
No, just no. Yeah, obviously Michael Kim. I mean, what is going on at 5,900? Doesn't make any sense. I posted this in our Discord Monday when the pricing came out. It's like there's no way he's under 30% owned. Like it just I mean, and it sucks because you have to like have him a ton because everyone's going to have him, and he's been playing fantastic, and there's no reason he shouldn't play fantastic again this week. I absolutely would. I mean, I've been talking about Michael Kim for 3 weeks straight now, and now he's $5,900.
Yeah,
like how did his price? It dropped in every way, not only numerically, but it dropped in relation to in every other aspect. It doesn't, and it makes absolutely zero sense to me. And I don't think that there's any chance that he ends up, only 20% owned. You know what I mean? I think it's impossible. So
I think it's possible because of how many golfers there are in this range, but I hear you though.
Yeah, maybe. But anyone that knows anything knows that, if you've been watching golf this season,
he's a cash.
Michael Kim's been playing great. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, who plays cash? But
no, but people do. A lot of people, if you start your cash lineups, in my opinion, your first 2 plugins are Scheffler and Kim.
Oh, well, sure. Absolutely. But I mean, SaberSim flagship MME, they have them projected at 23%. So, and I think it's going to be higher. You know what I mean?
It might be.
It might
be higher, smaller field, single entry, that kind of thing.
Right. And so my thought here, and I want to get I wonder what you think about this. My thought here was fade him in the high buy-in single entries and launch him in all the, GPPs, right? Or because it just seems like it's too obvious of a play. And I think everyone in the single entry is going to have, like, anyone that's playing the, $100 plus single entries knows Michael Kim. And that's probably where they're starting. You know what I mean? So what do you think about that as kind of a game theory play?
I think it makes some sense, but the only thing is I could argue going exactly the opposite. Either way would make sense to me. because he's going to be popular across the board. Fading him, usually the way to do it would be to fade him in the large field tournaments. But again, if you just like the play and you're going to find you have enough different other stuff, I don't think you need to worry as much about it personally.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so enough talk about that. Also in the range, I do like, again, this week, Jake Knapp, who I'm also surprised is as cheap as he is. And I'm even more surprised that he's not projected to be very much owned at all. He's been playing great. Got everything in the bag. No reason to, have any doubts about him. And he's also $5,900. So, maybe that's the play for me is just put my ownership on a Knapp where it would have normally just gone to Michael Kim because now Michael Kim isn't sneaky. You know what I mean?
Right.
But, anyway, moving down.
Those guys I could see I could see him literally being the leader of the tournament and then making an 8 on that set part, that 17.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
maybe playing. Yeah, maybe showdown. First round showdown.
No, but I'm with you. I'll keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. So then also, there's I think there's a lot of great value and there's a ton of guys in this range. So how are we breaking? We're just going all of the guys in the 5K range here because I've got
it's a lot of them. I know.
I got a lot of them. Okay, so I'll just kind of go quickly through this because we don't need to spend a ton of time. I like at 5,700. I like Kevin Roy and Kevin Yu, and also Nikolai Højgaard. Then moving down 5,600, I like Taylor Moore. 5,500, I like Putnam. 5,400, I like Alex Smalley. I actually really like Alex Smalley. He's been playing great and on weighted strokes metrics is crushing the field on a lot of things, and he's $5,400. So he's going to be a pretty heavy favorite of mine on the cheap range. Also going to go back to a little bit of Sam Ryder this week, who hasn't had the greatest performance over the past several weeks, but he's been making cuts and he's hanging in there, and that we know that he has the ability to compete with the big boys. So I'll be a little bit exposed to him this week as well. Also at 5,300, Hayden Springer, and then going all the way down 5,100 back to a little bit at Ben Coles this week, who has had a couple of good tournaments this season, but one of those up and comer guys that I think long term this season I kind of want to have some exposure to, and it's easy to be over the field on him at less than 1% owned or whatever. And the exact same case with Bryce Garnett at 5,100 as well, and Chris Ventura as well at 5,100, and then my last guy at 5K flat will be Chan Kim, who actually I think might actually gain a little bit more ownership than he's projected, just because he's been playing really well this week and he's been playing well on the PGA Tour. So I think that he's going to actually probably approach 5% ownership or something. But right. I'll definitely have exposure to him this week as well.
Yeah. Look, there's a lot of names to I know we named a lot of names, but there's a lot of names to here. I think I'm probably overexposed to a good portion of this range. Michael Kim, even with high ownership, I'm probably going to be over that. Just realistically, I have plenty of other plays that I'm making that are very weird. So I'm not worried about the ownership quite as much, playing enough lineups, max entering a lot of stuff. So I'm okay with it. I like Nikolai, but I'll also give me some Rasmus. I understand he didn't play quite as well as Nikolai did lately, but I still am totally high on both these guys for the future. And I don't feel that they should be this cheap. So I have both those guys right around 10%, just a little bit south of it. I do like Jake Knapp. I agree with what you said there. Knapp, the Højgaards. Who are the other ones? I'm looking at my current. Oh, Doug Gim. I think he's going to be popular, but I'll have some exposure. Probably not even what the field will have, but he's going to be popular because everyone knows him and he's that cheap. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it works when you're down in these price ranges. The other ones that I was a little bit interested in is Ryan Gerard. And the other one who was mentioned in chat was Phillips. I think that's interesting. I could talk myself into playing some Carl Phillips here. those are the main, the main ones down in that range for me. I'm just making sure I'm not. Oh, Taylor
Yeah.
Moore. Sorry, Taylor Moore.
I like your mention of Ryan Gerard. He burned me last week in my $200 single entry, missing the cut. Otherwise would have had a 66, and it ended up cashing anyway. So probably would have had a pretty good week if he just made the cut. But I guess I shouldn't skip him this week just because of that. That's the wrong game theory play. So I like that Ryan Gerard call.
Yeah, Ryan Gerard is, and I think he's kind of interesting. The one that's weird is that it's looking really popular is Alex Smalley. Looks like he's going to be really popular, and I like Alex Smalley just fine. But I don't know that I need to play double-digit owned guys when I have plenty of guys we just mentioned right around him. Just for honorary sake, because he almost helped me win the million here, I will play 2% of Patton Kizzire, 2.2% actually, just to be exact. So that way I can get my lucky 22 in there. Those are the main ones for me. Oh, Matt McCarty, I'm trying to get a little bit more of. The projections hate him. I kind of like him here. And he actually, I know he modeled well in a lot of Rick stuff. Rico Hui. But the one that might be like, okay, what about Eric Van Rooyen at 5,200? It's just weird to see these prices, these names down this low.
I can't believe I missed that.
That's just weird, right?
That is, I mean, I guess, he had a good week last week or 2 weeks ago, but he's been pretty bad all season. But
I know he has, but he's got the ability, just even having that, knowing that.
Yeah,
like, okay,
thanks for calling that. I didn't even see his name here. I'm definitely gonna have to get some exposure to him. That's way too cheap.
Yeah, and one guy who's sneaky bounce back year, who's looked really good, is Joel Dahman. He's playing good golf. Like it's happening.
That's true.
It's not like out of control. Finished 6th in Mexico. Finished 9th at the Farmers. He was cut at the Phoenix Open, which is where I really got hurt because I played him big over there because he lives there. Unfortunately, maybe he's better getting away from home because he's going all over. He's going to California, going to Mexico, and then Florida. He finished 32nd last week. Actually played really well, a decent Sunday, and he ends up in the top 20, 10, maybe top 15 even. So I like Joel Dahman a little bit at the bottom of this range, and that's sort of where I have it. I also just, again, if you don't plug anything in, the guys who you're going to get to are Kim and Smalley, Chan Kim and Alex Smalley. I'm telling you that the Sims love them. I think I'll be overweight the other guys and just underweight those guys. I won't X them out or anything, but I'm not going to be overweight maybe as much as anybody else. And just looking at these projections, like if you just followed SaberSim's projections, you're going to end up with like 75% Scheffler because they've got him. It's the biggest gap I've seen between first and second. Never mind first and second, first and third. Like you've got him they got him like 12 points higher. That's a huge number at this kind of a course. So I don't know. It's just I just want to throw that out there before we get into the game. So
that's true. Yeah.
With that said, Kenny, since it's okay, so you started first last time. I'm going to start first this time, just for this one. Then you're going to go then you'll go first the rest of them. And I am going to pick Oberg.
Okay. I'm going to take Morikawa actually.
Okay. That'll maybe force me to. Let me get a pen that actually writes better. So I'm not a red pen. You don't want a red pen. You want to write about things with a red pen. You want money. You want green. But my green pen has just ran out of ink. I hope that's not a bad sign. Under 10K to top 5.
Under 10K to top 5. I'm gonna go with Shane Lowry.
You're going with Lowry. That's interesting because I was hoping you'd go with Fleetwood, so that way I could go with Morikawa. So I'm going to say I have literally 110.
Matsuyama, you mean?
None of them work. I mean Matsuyama. What did I say?
You said Morikawa.
I'm going to say Matsu. So no, I'm going to say Tommy Fleetwood, but I'm just going to note that I'm putting a note next to myself that I'm putting Matsuyama / Fleetwood in there, and Lowry. I like this because you're going to force me to get to a little bit more of it than I was going to probably. All right, so what do you like under 9K to top 10?
Okay, I'm gonna under 9 to top 10. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna just say Siwoo. I'm gonna go for it.
Oh, okay. All right. That's cool. I am going to say Sepp Straka. And if I didn't, I would have said the guy who I thought you were going to say was Robert McIntyre. but I'm just throwing that.
Yeah, he would have.
notes
He would have been my. He was the guy I was thinking about saying, but I'm gonna pivot and say Siwoo instead.
I like the Siwoo idea. I really do. And you've been, by the way, you don't remember this, but I have a freakily weird memory for these kind of things. When you've said Siwoo in the past, it's usually come true. So I'm in on the Siwoo play. All right, let's go down to the under 8K to top 20.
Under 8K to top 20, I'm going straight to Keegan Bradley.
Keegan Bradley. Okay. And I am going to go, I'm going to say, I know the right answer is supposed to be other people say Corey Connors. I'm not going to say that. I don't know why this is hard for me. I guess I'm going to say Aaron Rye, but I'm going to again do my little nod to Christian Bezuidenhout and their similar price things. Those are the two that I like the best in that range. All right. And then we get under, so we're going to do it a little differently. Okay. So we're going to go to top 30 for under 7K because we've got too many guys with the 5K.
Okay.
Range. We haven't figured out the right kind of game yet.
So top 30 under 7K, I'm saying Ben Griffin.
Love that. Really like Ben Griffin and actually cannot understand, just like you, why he's maybe getting a little bit as overlooked as he is. I'm going to say Justin Rose, who I actually almost put for the top 20, but I'll take him for top 30. And then we get under 6K to make the cut / best guy to make the cut, however you want to look at it.
Michael Kim, baby.
Okay, you got him first.
One.
We knew one of us was going to say it, and I think I am going to say Nikolai Hogarth. I forgot to mention one guy, so I'm going to throw it out there now. I really like Jacob Bridgman this week, and I forgot to mention his name. I'm going to still go with Hogarth, and you could say both, but I do like the Bridgman play quite a bit this week. So, all right. So with that said, now we have to go back up to the 9Ks. I know I wasn't scrolling along. Sorry, guys. Above 9K to miss the cut.
All right. I'm gonna say Sungjae.
Sungjae. The cut making Sungjae. Okay, she's got it right earlier this year with Sungjae, I think. Or was he? I think he was.
That guy's always right, so probably.
I like this guy this week. I see a weird blow up coming at some point. Well, there's too easy of an answer because I'm going to be over the field on this guy, but the most logical answer has to be Victor Hovland.
That's true. Yeah.
And by the way, I know I didn't touch on Wyndham Clark. I'll be overweight Wyndham Clark as well. Like again, you don't need much to get overweight on these guys. They're going to be unowned. And Wyndham Clark is a guy who's like, again, if he could just put the 4 rounds together, he was awesome going into the weekend last weekend and just was terrible after terrible Saturday and Sunday.
All right, 2 weeks ago too, same thing. He was first round leader, and then blew it up on Saturday. It's like
I feel like it happens with him more than just about anybody.
Really odd. Yeah.
And all right, there we go. There we have it. Kenny, thanks so much for joining us, guys. Should be a fun tournament. Looking forward to it, and hopefully we're gonna see some screenshots along the way. Any showdown stuff I will post, but I will also post all my exposures and my core plays. I will post my my bets this week. And but the exposures is probably what you get obviously the best idea of what I'm actually doing. Whether you like it or not, you want to fade me, go the other way, that's fine. But that will all be for site members, and I will post that stuff on the site a little bit later. Kenny, anything else before we get out of here?
No. Let's have a good week.
All right, good luck. And Kenny, we want to see a big win while you're in Hawaii.